Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hatchers, catchers and body snatchers, welcome along to the Joe Spiver YouTube channel where we discuss books and little else. And you join me on a very windy Wednesday morning in the north of England, which is taking your standard sort of humble family SUV and is so thunderous that it is carrying those SUVs across the street. I've just been out for my brief morning walk and barely escaped with my life, but gladly for the internet and indeed my immediate family, I survived and I'm still here. And I yesterday was frolicking through the forestry of BookTube, and I came across on Micah Cummins' channel a tag called The Whale Tag. Now, if somehow you've fallen into a statistical anomaly and somehow have seen my channel and haven't seen Micah's, he is a, what should we say, very measured, very specific, very precise YouTuber who generally does weekly reading updates as to what he's doing. He is the type of gentleman that could in the 1940s and 50s have been trusted to deliver the very prim and proper BBC radio updates in this country, whereas I couldn't do that because I'm far too erratic. I'm the drunk Norwegian kicking ashtrays on the tabletops, so that's where we differ. But yeah, a very good channel. If heaven forbid you haven't seen anything that he's done, please go check it out. But we have today The Whale Tag, which is 7 or 8 prying questions, which will mean that I can talk about some other books that we have today. I know it's heretical that I aren't doing a tag on a Tuesday, but we've got busy lives, and I was organising a fete in Florida yesterday, so I couldn't exactly do a video. Right, okay, so we have the whale tag. So, question number 1. The blue whale is the largest and heaviest animal on Earth. What's the largest book you've read or want to read? Now, as a Briton, I would like to take issue with the statement that the blue whale is the largest and heaviest animal on Earth, because if any of you are fans of the excellent BBC iPlayer show QI, formerly presented by Stephen Fry, they make jocular reference every now and then to Alan Davis's ardent belief that the blue whale is the biggest on the planet, when actually I don't think they believe it to be. But anyway, that's a minor thing. The longest book you've read or want to read. So I have with me 2 options here, both from hefty Russians. I have who translated this? The Macduff translation of The Brothers Karamazov, which is 350,000 words, close on 1,000 pages with an introduction and notes. That thing's damn big. And that's what I have read. And then a huge book that I would want to read, and I will hopefully do another sort of chapter by chapter read along of this on the channel at some point. I have Tolstoy's War and Peace, which is this one being particularly the Maud translation, written in 1922, and supposedly, according to the blurb, the one that received Tolstoy's personal approval or something. So that should be jolly good. I do like The Brothers Karamazov. I wasn't a huge fan of the seemingly endless and often incongruous philosophizing that Dostoevsky goes on about. That would be the only apposite way of saying it. But it's a marvellous mystery story. It's as I say, it's a very long book, but something that I really enjoyed. And the court scenes at the end, where there is one particular brother, Karamazov brother, that is accused of murdering his father, who is a git that deserved it, but nonetheless. And there's a lawyer going by the name of Fatukovich, I believe, and he delivers some excellent speeches, and that was the part that I enjoyed most, but that's the largest book that I've read, I believe, to date. What else have I done that's quite big? Anna Karenina, obviously Middlemarch you've known about, and other things of that nature, but that just about tips it. So, question 2. Sperm whales routinely dive to a depth of 2,000 feet to feed on squid, but can dive to a depth of 10,000 feet. What is a book that has motivated you to look deeper into a subject, character, situation, or series? And we have, ladies and gentlemen, this would be an e-read for me, so I don't have the physical copy. I shall just get a picture up for you. Hopefully I don't bring up any pictures of any intense pornography. No? Here we are. Yeah, it is, if we can see, Peter Hitchens' non-fiction book, The War We Never Fought, which very, very, very cleverly examines over an expanse of about 30 or 40 years Britain's de facto decriminalisation of particularly marijuana use. And he rails against the sort of quite invidious idiots on the internet that tell us the war on drugs hasn't worked, and so we ought to legalise cannabis, which is essentially just it's just a front of completely idiotic people that would love to see marijuana legalised, and it's full of it's a cadre and coterie of irreverent people that don't take anything seriously in life and want to smoke a joint every weekend. But Peter uses I think there's a Mick Jagger court case he discussed. There was, I think, even a few members of the headline members of the Beatles were arrested for possession, and he, as I say, talks about the proliferation of the myth that there is an exigent danger to the acquiring, use, and inevitable abuse of marijuana and cocaine and ketamine and all of those types of horrible barbiturates. And he does it really well. He does it really convincingly. He's not the most, obviously he's the little and lesser known brother of Christopher Hitchens, about whom more in due course. But he's a wonderful writer. Sorry, I'll keep it at the screen. It's a wonderful book, lesser known. It's a nice little nichey thing if you want to get involved in that, and I would recommend it highly. Doesn't, as I say, it doesn't read beautifully, it just reads cogently and well. And so, question 3, we have humpback whales sing long, complex songs they have in common with other individual humpback whales. These songs can change uniformly for entire groups of whales. What is a book that has changed meaning for you over the years? And we have, drum roll please, George Orwell's 1984. That's not doing well with the light. 1984, which, upon first reading, obviously it's on the syllables of every single early year secondary school in the country. On first reading, you are told that this is a immensely prescient and unbelievably brilliant work of, what would you say, societal prediction. Everybody thinks that Orwell got everything completely right and foreshadowed a weird tyrannical future, which of course isn't particularly true. It's a very well written book. It centres on the gentleman's name I'm forgetting, but it centres on a huge police state. In fact, I needn't even give a synopsis. It centres on a huge police state that punishes all sorts of dissidents and miscreants that they see fit. And initially it is a work of prescience. He talks about Big Brother, and he accurately predicts the the advent of bidirectional digital media and the effect that will have upon citizen surveillance and things of that nature. But it is a railing against a specific type of governmental terror and tyranny, the like of which we do not see today, and I don't think it's much of a. I don't think it would be very arrogant to say that Aldous Huxley predicts the world a little better in Brave New World. But 1984 was excellent. I was overawed by it at first, and then the more you read of dystopian fiction, the more you realise that Orwell was a step or two behind some other people. So that's that one. Question 4. Killer whales are incredibly smart. What was a book you felt was especially smart, fiction or non-fiction, that made you really think? Now, I was a bit I was a bit ponderous about this question, but I have picked one out because I think it's all a bit ambiguous, the way it's worded, but it's a nice question nonetheless. I have Oppenheimer, American Prometheus, written by Kai Bird and Sherwin, was it? Yeah, Martin Sherwin, and this was a recommend from Steve Donahue, so thank you, Steve, if you happen upon this channel, welcome. This was an excellent, sprawling work of biography with a load of footnotes in it, a load of endnotes in it, that traces the entirety of the nuclear physicist's life, from England to Germany to America, back to America, to his management of the Manhattan Project, how he is sort of bordering on the autistic, as you might expect, because of his strict love of all the sciences, and yet he is quite an eloquent person. He is yeah, very conversational and very witty, which obviously isn't expected of a nuclear physicist who's managing a governmental project in Los Alamos. But it did make me think, because all of these biographies of or considerations and investigations of these figures never lay any blame on them for the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction that we see in the nuclear arsenals of every major economy now. It never lays any blame that the fact that Oppenheimer and, who else might we say, Edward Teller and Enrico Fermi and multiple others knew perfectly well what these bombs were going to do upon their multiplication, and had sort of slight broom cupboard moral qualms, but nothing too fanciful, and yet ploughed on anyway, because presumably they wanted their name in the history books. And this book made me ponder just as to why that line of thought is so very absent in biographies of this kind. But yeah, really good. Plenty of pictures in there as well if you're a pictorial one like me. So that's very good. I would recommend that as well. So, question number 5. Belugas are nicknamed the canaries of the seas because of the sounds they make. What's a book you wanted to talk to others about after reading it, and why? So for this one I have selected Two Wheels Good by Jodie Rosen, some more non-fiction. I know this is this sort of often BookTube is swamped with fiction, so it's been nice to get some real stuff in there for once. This is subtitled The History and Mystery of the Bicycle, which is a rather temerarious title in and of itself, given that it's only about 250 pages. If you were to get an accurate history and mystery of the bicycle, it would be thousands of pages. The reason this interests me so much is because, I can hereby reveal, I was, only 3 or 4 years ago, folks, a aspiring and budding pseudo-professional, semi-professional cyclist. And I wanted to go all the way to, not all the way to the top, but I wanted to earn money by pedaling a bike and being paid to do that by a sponsoring company. That was my main goal. That was what would become what I wanted to become my vocation. I was perfectly happy with sitting for 15, 20, 25 plus hours per week on the tip of a hard-nosed saddle and burying my head down in horrible wintry conditions and sweltering summer conditions, and I was a complete and utter fool for doing that, really, because that's not... it's quite an objectionable thing to be doing for 25 hours a week. But anyway, so whenever anything does come up cycling related, I pounce upon it. I found this, which is less of a dissection of anything professional or anything competitive to do with the bike, but it talks about how the bike is inextricably, or was inextricably linked with sort of dandiacal behaviour of the bourgeoisie in Victorian Britain. It talks about the country of Bhutan, which obviously sets or measures itself globally by, not by GDP, but by gross national happiness, which is obviously troping on GDP. But he talks of that and how the Prime Minister rides a bike very well. What else does he talk about? He talks about New York. And this is clearly a gentleman, Jodie Rosen, who has found love for the bike by utilitarian means, by just simply getting from A to B, whereas I wanted my love and then eventual hatred of the bicycle was something different altogether. But yeah, this is excellent. It's not a history, or it is a history and mystery, but it's not the history or mystery. But jolly good, I would recommend it. And next up we have question 6. Male narwhals, known as the unicorns of the sea, have 2 teeth, including one long spiralling tooth that can grow nearly 9 feet long. Someone's overcompensating. What's a book you heard was magical, only to discover that it was less magical after reading it? And oh boy, have we got a selection here. We have, I selected for this, Ms. Sally Rooney's Normal People. Now, this came to me via the hands, I believe, of an ex-girlfriend, actually, who loved it, and it is tragically bad, ladies and gentlemen. It is objectively, tragically, and unforgivably terrible. This lady, Sally Rooney, you will know her well. She has acolytes from Britain to Bhutan. She is a darling of the bien-pensant liberal competition-picking people who decide who gets awards, who decide who is given tenure at a university, who decide who is on the front steps of Waterstones or Barnes & Noble in America when you walk in. And she is a squintillion. She is wealthy beyond the dreams of avarice. She is lauded and venerated and adored by so many people, and there has never been a larger disparity, ladies and gentlemen, between the quality of her work and the response to her work. I mean, there are 4 or 5 prerequisites that you ought to meet in order to even be considered to be a quote-unquote good writer. Development of character, density of character, eloquent prose, and unfortunately Ms. Rooney has never ticked any of those boxes for me. I've read this 4 or 5 times now to try and bash my head against the door to just solely to see what people so love about it, and I can't see it, I'm afraid. As I say, she's the wealthiest person in the world because of the relative success of her novels. If, for example, she happened to stumble upon a London cafe and in between her oat vegan latte, she wanted to build or plumb in a swimming pool in that cafe, she could buy the entire building of that cafe of NW1 and place a swimming pool at the bottom of it and have all of the men bring all of the cement within 6 hours. She could have all that done really, really quickly because she has more money than she knows what to do with. All because of some really, really, really poor novels, I'm afraid. But she will be perennial and pervasive for the next 10 or 15 years, folks. So, like it or lump it, get used to it. But this was recommended to me. It's been continually defended as a piece of magnificence. And yet, it's pants, lads. So, yeah, that's my answer to that question. Moving swiftly on. Number 7. Well, it's evident bowhead whales live beyond 100 years of age. There's evidence that they may live to be 200 years old. What is the oldest book in your collection? Now, rather more positively, I realise that was a little lugubrious and a little pugilistic. Here we are. We have Byron's poetical works. Now, I've already waxed lyrical about George Gordon a few times already on this channel, and I believe this to be the oldest book I have in my collection. It came to me. Actually, this one isn't the oldest one I've got. There is a slight. Oh Christ! I have a slightly older one behind me by about 10 years, but it's the same. It's a full collection of Byron's poetical works. Both of them came to me when me, my grandparents, and my mother were availing ourselves of the culinary brilliance of the Minerva pub in Hull. We were having a what was it? I think it was a steak and ale pie or something, and it's a very quaint, very archaic pub. Oh, at least it likes to seem that way. And then they take contactless card, don't worry. And on the shelves surrounding us, they have many an old book, just so as to really just to complete the vista of it being an old pub. They're not actually books, many of much merit, but I've enjoyed looking through them, and I found this, which is a full and utter collection of Byron's poetical works, and it has inside of it a really nice sentiment. It was clearly given as a gift, as I say, I've already mentioned this, of the Eton cricket coach when he left Eton, and it was given to this gentleman who left Eton in 1861. So you lot will do your quick maths. I'm going to do some very quickly. That's going to be about 170 years old, is it? Something like that? Yeah. Plus or minus 5 or 10 years, it's about 170 years old. And it's got everything that he ever wrote in there quite nicely. It's got some... It's obviously it's small print. It's got some gold gilded stuff here, and it looks like something that Miss Hermione Granger would have tumbling out of her tote bag. So yeah, that's convincingly the oldest thing that I have. And then finally, the last question is: Atlantic grey whales were sadly wiped out by humans. Thumbs down. Today, only Pacific grey whales remain. What's one book that's either out of print or out of fashion that you wish would make a comeback? And we have the memoirs of Sergeant Bourgogne, I believe it is pronounced, or Bourgogne, or something of that description. The final G is silent. This is an account by a reasonably senior soldier in Napoleon's armies upon their retreat from Moscow. And and I would recommend it to any of the keyboard warrioring, lollygagging, liberal bien-pensant people who believe that solely because three of the people in their office aren't unremittingly happy with them all of the time, that constitutes a hardship, or because, for example, they have to get up at 7:30 one morning instead of 8 a.m, or in fact because they have to have 2 biscuits this evening because of 3 because they've run out, or because they have to travel 37 miles to see their grandmother in a care home and they think that that's a terrible hardship. I would advise them to read this book because as soon as you have learnt about brothers fighting of each other tooth and nail to the death so as to eat a rotting pigeon's carcass, or if you've seen people walking around in sub-0 degree temperatures in their feet, or if you've heard about the abject horror of a war-ravaged family on a random Siberian Russian plain, as soon as you've heard that from any of this book, then everything is rather hardship is rather contextualised, which I think we're severely lacking. But yeah, I don't think this is in print. If it is still in print, I think this copy in and of itself was printed in the 80s. I couldn't find one online, so I believe it's not to be in print. If there is indeed any of you guys, I would love to be sent the link, because I'd like a new copy of this because it's yellowing, and we can't have that, can we? So yes, that concludes the whale tag. I know it's I've been a terrible miscreant by doing it on a Wednesday instead of a Tuesday, but that matters not. And I would finally like to say thank you all so very much for being so very kind and very thankful for my videos. These are but the early days. I hope you severely enjoyed this video. Thank you again, BookTube.